Oh, sure. I'm all excited because, I finally have my Team Daryl shirt on, ready for The Walking Dead, and there's no Daryl in the episode. Welcome back, everyone. This is Jason. Um, yeah, this is a far better episode than last week. And, not that last week's episode was bad, but this episode, um, a lot more action. Obviously, we've got, some of our, usual group that we're used to seeing on The Walking Dead, um, back in the episode. So I think that does add something to it. This is going to be my review of The Walking Dead Season 5, Episode 5, Self Help. Uh, and when you find out in the episode why they call it self help, or what the reference to self help is, it's absolutely hilarious. So, yeah, in this episode, we finally have some major character development for our characters, Sergeant Abraham, Rosita, and of course Eugene, which they reveal the big secret, um, or the truth about the secret, I should say. Uh, so yeah, I'll go down some bullet points, talk about the characters and the plot for the episode a little bit. We'll start with Abraham. Great episode. We really, because from the what was it, halfway point to last season, we get to see these guys, but we really don't know a lot about them. The only thing we know is that Abraham's military, he's protecting Eugene, and Rosita, you know, and so you really don't understand up until this episode the true definition of all their relationships together, how they got together, So we learned a lot in this episode, and that was great. Starting with Abraham, we get to see that through flashbacks, and the flashbacks were great. They were a little confusing at first because they showed one of the previews to last week's episode of The Talking Dead. They always show that little preview snippet, to the next week's episode, and they showed the scene where Abraham is just beating the snot out of that guy. What looks like he's at either a store or a restaurant, with a steel can of whatever, death by SpaghettiOs, whatever it was. My SpaghettiOs. And and through these flashbacks throughout this episode, they don't show everything at once. We see, because obviously this was way back when everything started going to hell. Or at least we assume it was back about then. But we see that Abraham had a wife and some kids. They were either, like I said, it was either a storefront or like a diner. I'd have to go back and look, but it was either or. And Abraham was obviously protecting his family. And now, when someone, and I've never been in the military, so I'm not going to profess to be some expert on this, but when someone's in the military and they're married, and then the guy goes off, whether he's a weekend warrior or goes off on a tour of duty or whatever, he does what he does there, and then he comes home, and depending on what the soldier does for a living or whatever, they leave that over there. They leave that back where they were. I don't think they try to bring a lot of that home with them. So they buried it inside or something to that effect. I'm assuming. So whatever So whatever he used to do, it seemed like he was very good at it, and it was pretty brutal. And he certainly took it out on these people that he was trying to, protect his family from, which is what it looks like, anyways. You kind of assume from the circumstances. And if they're not used to seeing that side of him, that's why they were cowering behind the counter, by the cash register, or whatever, what looked like, a cash register or a diner counter, they were, cowering, and the looks on, they were just absolutely terrified of him, because he was all bloody and tore up from beating these guys up. So, obviously I'm sure they were thankful that he protected them, but how he did it, just like, they were like, whoa, you've got issues. No. So, and then we see in another flashback, he wakes up and they're gone, and they left a little note on cashier receipt tape, don't come find us. And then, he's all distraught, runs out, and he's looking for them and finds them right outside, just mauled and destroyed. Um, either by more people that he beat up or the walkers. It's, you can tell they're certainly, the wife was mangled and beat up, and it looked like she was eaten. Um, but she was like in such bad shape, it was kind of hard to tell. But nonetheless, wife and kids are dead, and he's like, well, that's it. I don't have a purpose on this earth anymore. And you just, it's it's understandable why he felt that way. It's like that was his mission, to protect his family. Mission's over, game over, and he's ready to call it quits. And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, Eugene shows up. And as tragic as the scene is, there's that sense of humor that comes along with Eugene's character. And he's like stumbling down the street. He's so pathetic. He's like, stumbling, trying to get away from three walkers. He's like, help me. And all of a sudden, um, Abraham, snaps out of, suicide mode and goes and takes his frustration and anger out of the loss of his family on these walkers. Just boom, 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 takes them all out. Eugene is shocked. And in the process of, all this going on, seeing the distraught in Abraham and understanding his own situation, because he knows he's helpless in this apocalypse, zombie apocalypse, and needs protection. He quick comes up with the thing in his head like, hey, I'm an important person. I need you to help protect me. We have a mission to do. So he scams this all up in his head, and we see that throughout the course of the episode. And so seeing how this all played out and how they came together was really cool. Um, and throughout the episode, we learn that many people have died to protect Eugene, and how serious of a bond. It's a strange kind of bond, because it's more of a, Eugene is the mission, protect Eugene, and you can see the awkwardness of Eugene wear on the relationship between Rosita and Abraham. And we'll talk about Rosita for a bit. Rosita, you, you can see from the beginning of the episode to the end of the episode what she means as a person to Abraham. You can tell they have, I think you can say they have a relationship. It's, I think their relationship means a couple of different things. Rosita obviously has feelings for Abraham. And you can tell, partway through where they're getting it on, in that one store, and Eugene's looking from afar and, creeping on him in the self-help section, which is where the title came from. Um, she's physically attracted to him, and yet at the same time, what's the word I'm looking for? Uh, I can't think of the word. The relationship where she is his conscience. She helps him think clearly, makes the right decisions. And she sees how stressed out Abraham is about getting Eugene to Washington. And she's like, hey, I get it that there's a mission, but we're all burnt out. And the reason why we're screwing up is because we are so burnt out. Let's take some time and just chill, just regroup, refuel, refocus, and Abraham's just, go, just go, 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 no matter what the cost. And, like the more time we take to, stop, you know, the less chance there is to complete the mission, you know. Um, so, yeah, we finally get to see what kind of relationship Rosita and Abraham have. Because, and Rosita, this is the first time Rosita's like said hardly anything, So you really get to see what she means to him, which was great. And Eugene, of course, um, develops a lot in this episode as well. He, the closer he gets to Washington, the more he's freaking out because he knows that he's full of crap. And he also knows that without all these people around him, he's done. He's not going to last 2 seconds, But also throughout this episode, we see that he starts to, grow some balls. He starts to, find his cojones, and which is good because the closer they get to Washington, the more he's starting to feel like, okay, I need to tell these guys something soon. And depending on everyone's reaction from that, I'm going to have to figure out how to, defend myself, if all these people are pissed and leave me. One of the best scenes in the whole episode, which kind of was awkward yet great and very cool at the same time, was when he gets up on the fire hydrant, which is the second vehicle that goes to hell in this episode, and takes out all the walkers with the water cannon, and just heads are getting knocked off, limbs are getting knocked off, just wow, just destroys them, and everyone just kind of stands back like, whoa, look at him go, and you can tell at that same point, when Abraham gets on top of the fire hydrant and he's trying to get the thing going, he's starting to lose it himself. He really is, and everyone, he starts, laughing hysterically. So they're coming to take me away, haha. It's the first thing I thought of. So yeah, and then finally, they get to that point where they're heading down the road, trying to stay focused. The short bus, the short bus is done. The fire truck's done, and I almost said fire hydrant. You're riding a fire hydrant. No, the fire truck's done. And they're going down this country road, and it's a great panoramic view. Great scene in the episode is you see this town, what looks like a town in the distance, or buildings or whatever it is, and he's just full of hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of walkers. And it's like, okay, you got to go. It's one thing if you see a few walkers on the road, okay, you can probably take them out. But no, for acres and acres and acres across this whole landscape, that's all you see is this humongous horde of walkers. And finally, everyone's like, no, we can't do this. And that's when everybody just snaps. Abraham snaps, and the whole stress of the whole situation of trying to figure out where to go and what to do. And Eugene just, finally snaps, and he's like, I'm not a scientist. And I've I've known this. I don't read the comics, but I heard through other, people talking about videos and stuff about his character in particular. I knew this was coming, but I didn't know when. So, I'm watching this with my wife, and I'm and I told her I knew. And she's like, "You suck." And I'm like, "Well, I didn't spoil it for you." So yeah, I knew this was coming, just didn't know when. And I didn't think it was coming in this episode, but now that, we know, and, because those who don't read the comics probably didn't see this coming. I'm sure they had an inkling that maybe Eugene was full of it, but, didn't really know to the extent of, no, it's just none of it's real. There's no mission to Washington. I'm sure there's something in Washington that will keep them safe, but um, there could be some kind of um, sanctuary, to protect them. But now we know that there's no mission, and he's no scientist. He is smarter, but and unfortunately, he was not smart enough to stop bragging after everyone's like, because that's the point where Abraham just loses it and just decks him and knocks him out, which was another great scene. And I'm sure some people are like, "Oh, great, Eugene's dead." No, I don't think he's dead. I just think he's got his face punched in a little. So, but yeah, this will definitely change the angle for the rest of the season. There's a few episodes left. Three, yeah, 6, 7, and 8, and then that's it for the first half of the season. So in the next 3 weeks, we're gonna see, Daryl and Carol, because we got a preview for next week. We're gonna see Daryl and Carol try to rescue Beth, and hopefully that goes well. We'll see. We don't know if Beth comes out of this alive, um, but we are gonna catch up with them next week, and I'll finally have a reason to wear my shirt. So. So yeah, that great character development in this one. We see that Eugene's secret is no no longer valid for the series. He's not who he said he was. And yeah, so we finally get to know more about each of these characters, and yeah, so I can't wait to see the next one. We did get some previews. I'm not going to get into that, but so yeah, that's it for this one. Put it in the comments below. Let me know what you think of this episode. I thought this was certainly a better episode. Started out a little weird, but by the end, everything made sense, and we see where this whole thing was going now with the mission. So yeah, tell me what you thought of it, and thanks for watching, guys.